Welcome back to the deep dive. And I have to be honest with you right off the bat. When I first saw the topic for this week's research stack, my immediate reaction was to just roll my eyes so hard I thought I might pull a muscle.
Yeah, I had a feeling you might say that. It is a bit, well, it's a bit out there compared to what we usually cover.
Out there is definitely putting it lightly. I mean, the headline is literally "Thoughts Create Reality." And immediately I'm just picturing, a vision board, a bunch of crystals, and someone trying to manifest a parking spot at Trader Joe's just by thinking really, really hard about it.
Right. Right.
Usually just feels like magic or worse, like toxic positivity. You know the vibe. Just smile and the rent will pay itself.
Completely fair. And honestly, if the sources we were analyzing today were about magic or suggesting you can just wish your way into a new tax bracket, we wouldn't be doing this deep dive.
Thank goodness.
But what's actually fascinating about this stack is that it starts by validating exactly that skepticism you have. It explicitly states you cannot bend the laws of physics with your mind.
Okay, good. Because I was really worried we were going to have to suspend gravity for the next 20 minutes.
However, and this is a big however, the research argues that while you can't bend physics, you are constantly constructing your lived experience. And you're doing it through very real biological mechanics.
Okay.
We aren't talking about magic wands here. We are talking about engineering, specifically the engineering of the human nervous system.
Right. So that's the hook that actually got me to read the rest of the file. The sources claim that there is a mechanical link between what happens in our head and what happens in our actual physical life. It's less the secret and more neuroscience.
Exactly.
So let's unroll the blueprint. If we strip away the woo-woo, how does a thought actually translate into reality?
All right, it helps us look at it as a chain reaction. The source material lays out a very specific feedback loop. It goes like this. Thoughts shape perception. Perception shapes behavior. Behavior shapes environment. And ultimately, environment shapes experience.
Okay, let's slow that down and attack the first link. Thoughts shape perception. That sounds really nice, like a motivational poster in a guidance counselor's office. But is that biologically true? Or is it just a metaphor?
No, it is biologically true. To understand this, we have to talk about a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
The RAS sounds like a relentless government agency.
It kind of acts like one.
Yeah.
It's a bundle of nerves at your brainstem that filters out unnecessary information so the important stuff actually gets through.
Makes sense.
Think about it. Right now, for you listening, there are probably 1,000 things happening. The hum of your fridge, the feeling of your clothes on your skin, the lighting, the smell of whatever's in the room. If your brain processed all of that equally, you'd be catatonic. You'd be totally overwhelmed.
So the RAS is essentially the bouncer.
Exactly. It's the bouncer at the club of your consciousness. It only lets in what it thinks is relevant. And here's the kicker. You tell the bouncer what to look for based on what you focus on.
Oh, is this the red car effect? Where you buy a red car and then suddenly you see them everywhere on the highway?
That's the classic example, yeah. The red cars were always there, but your RAS was filtering them out as irrelevant noise. Now that you own one, they are signal. But the source argues this applies to abstract concepts too, not just physical objects.
Like what?
Well, if your dominant thought pattern is, say, the world is hostile, your RAS literally scans the room for threats. You will see the frown on the barista's face, but you'll completely miss the person holding the door open for you.
So your reality, like the actual data you're processing in your brain, is literally different from the person standing right next to you. I'm seeing a horror movie and they might be seeing a rom-com just because our bouncers have different instructions.
Precisely. You are living in a hostile world simulation because that's the only data your brain is letting in. And this leads right into step 2, perception shapes behavior. If you perceive the barista as hostile,
I'm going to be defensive. I'm not going to smile. I might be short with them. I mean, I'm preloading a fight because I assume one is coming.
correct. You adopt the defensive nervous system tone. You are tight, guarded, reactive. And that triggers step 3, behavior shapes environment. Because you were rude to the barista.
The barista is rude back.
Boom. And finally, environment shapes experience. You walk away thinking, see, I knew people were awful. You have just validated your own hypothesis. You didn't magically manifest a rude barista, but you engineered the interaction to confirm your bias.
That is actually kind of terrifying when you think about it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but purely mechanical.
It is. And the source contrasts this with what they call the powerless view. If your dominant thought is, I have no agency, Nothing I do matters. Your RAS filters for obstacles. You see all the reasons why something won't work. Your behavior becomes passive.
You don't speak up in the meeting. You don't set the boundary.
And then the environment rolls right over you, confirming that you are, in fact, powerless.
Wow. Right. But there is a third option in the reading, the agency view. And this isn't, I control the universe. It's simply, I can influence my environment.
That distinction is crucial. Influence versus control. It's
Yeah.
a huge difference. If you believe you can influence things, your RAS scans for opportunities. You see the crack in the door, you behave with curiosity, you take an action, and the environment shifts. Maybe not exactly how you planned, but it moves. You are participating in reality, not just suffering it.
So when the text says thoughts create reality, it really means thoughts set the filter, which drives the decision, which creates the trajectory.
That's the formula. Decisions compound into a life.
Okay, I buy the mechanics. It makes perfect sense on paper. But here's where I get stuck. If the agency view, thinking I can handle this, leads to a better life, why is it so hard to maintain? Why does my brain naturally want to scroll through bad news at 11 at night and convince myself that civilization is collapsing?
The million-dollar question. The source addresses this directly. It asks, why are we addicted to negativity? And the answer isn't that we are broken. It's that we are survivors.
So we're running outdated software.
Exactly. We are running Pleistocene version 1.0 software in a highly digital world. Your brain is threat-oriented. In the wild, if you miss a beautiful sunset, it's a bummer. If you miss a predator in the bushes, you're dead.
So negativity is just high priority beta.
To your survival circuits, yes. Peace feels neutral to the brain. It's low-calorie data, nothing to report, but a threat, a conflict. That feels urgent. And here is where the addiction comes in. When you engage with a threat, even a digital one on your phone, your brain releases dopamine.
Wait, hold on. I always thought dopamine was the happy chemical. You get it from eating chocolate or winning a video game. Why would I get dopamine from reading about a geopolitical crisis?
That is a huge misconception. We often oversimplify dopamine as pleasure. But scientifically, dopamine is about salience and pursuit. It's the seek chemical. It says, pay attention, this is important.
So when I see a headline that says, everything is burning, my dopamine spikes because my brain thinks, relevant, focus, figure this out.
Exactly. The source notes that dopamine spikes from outrage, fear, conflict, and dominance struggles. It provides what they call the illusion of significance. Worrying feels like work. Being outraged feels like you're doing something productive.
But you're really just sitting on your couch, spiking your cortisol.
You are marinating your nervous system in stress hormones, and the source points out that modern media structures are engineered to exploit this wiring. They know that peace doesn't get clicks.
Right. Local man enjoys sandwiches not going viral.
Not a chance. But local man threatened by sandwich crisis. That clicks. Drama feels urgent. Peace feels boring. So we are stuck in this loop where we are biologically wired to look for the bad, and we have built an entire economy that shovels coal into that engine.
And that segues perfectly into the next section of the deep dive. The source talks about these systemic pressures, things like hierarchical capitalism or social stratifications. Now, usually when we get into this territory, it turns into a political debate. But the source takes a very detached, almost mechanical view of these systems.
It treats them like operating systems. It's not asking if they are evil. It's asking what behaviors do they incentivize. And the answer is usually competition, hierarchy, and accumulation.
Which, on the surface, aren't essentially bad things. We need some competition to innovate. We need to accumulate resources to survive.
True. But the shadow side, as the source calls it, is what happens when those incentives run unchecked and interact with our own human insecurity. If a system prioritizes competition, it rewards dominance. If it prioritizes accumulation, it rewards scarcity thinking.
And scarcity thinking triggers that exact same threat detection mode we were just talking about.
Exactly. It keeps you in a sympathetic nervous system state, fight or flight. The source lists what these systems actually reward in practice. Performance over authenticity, productivity over rest, status over relational depth.
Performance over authenticity really stood out to me in the reading. It feels like we are all exhausted because we are performing the role of a successful human rather than actually feeling like one.
And the research suggests that when people feel internally unstable, when they don't have a solid sense of self, they over-identify with these external hierarchies. They need the promotion, the likes, the big car, not for utility, but to prove they exist.
It's an external validation trap. I am safe because I am above you.
Right. Fear of falling behind. fear of losing power.
Yeah.
So you have a brain naturally wired for negativity, living in a structural system that literally monetizes insecurity. It's a toxicity cocktail.
Okay, so we are swimming in these systems, and we have brains that absolutely love to freak out. It feels a bit hopeless at this point, but this is where the source pivots. It introduces this concept of attention as a resource.
This is definitely the most empowering part of the text. It reframes attention not just as what you happen to be looking at, but as a finite biological currency. You only have so much of it. And the concept of rehearsing is key here.
Rehearsing. Usually I think of that as practicing for a school play or something.
But you are rehearsing your internal state all day long. Think about your morning shower. Are you actually washing your hair? Or are you winning an imaginary argument with your boss?
Oh, I am absolutely destroying my boss in the shower argument. I'm brilliant in the shower. I have all the best comebacks.
We all do. But biologically, your brain doesn't really know the difference between the visualization and the actual event. When you rehearse that grievance, you're firing the exact same neural pathways as if you were actually in a screaming match. You're literally engaging in neuroplasticity to become better at being angry.
I'm building anger muscle.
You're strengthening the neural network for resentment. Familiarity eventually becomes your identity. If you spent 80% of your day rehearsing grievance, fear, or outrage, your nervous system sets that as your baseline. You become agitated by default.
So even when my phone is off and I'm just sitting there, I'm vibrating at the frequency of my Twitter feed.
Yes, you have trained your nervous system to be chronically dysregulated.
So how do we untrain it? The source gives us an actionable framework, and I was really surprised that the first step wasn't just think positive thoughts.
No, not at all. Step 1 is regulate before reacting. This is purely physiological. You simply cannot think your way out of a dysregulated nervous system.
Why is that? I mean, I like to think I'm pretty logical even when I'm upset.
You might think you are, but biologically you aren't. When you are in a high-stress state, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, empathy, and long-term planning, literally goes offline. It gets bypassed. You're operating straight from the amygdala.
You're in lizard mode.
You're in lizard mode. So trying to solve a complex life problem or a global crisis while in lizard mode is impossible. You have to stabilize the physiology first. Breath, sleep, hydration, movement. These sound like generic self-care fluff, but the source calls them perception stabilizers.
I love that framing. I'm not drinking water because I'm thirsty. I'm stabilizing my perception filter.
It works. If you regulate the body, the prefrontal cortex comes back online. Then and only then can you move to step 2, which is choose your informational diet.
Which basically means stop drinking from the fire hose of doom.
It means recognizing that you have limited bandwidth. If you fill it all with global tragedies you cannot influence, you have zero bandwidth left for the local things you actually can influence, which leads to step 3 shift from consumption to contribution.
This is the agency piece coming back around.
Negativity thrives on passivity. When you sit there and scroll and consume, you feel incredibly small. When you actually do something, bake bread, fix the neighbor's fence, write a code patch, plant a garden, you restore your agency. The source says it's perfectly, action is the antidote to despair.
It reminds me of that feeling when you finally clean the kitchen after avoiding it for 3 days. The kitchen is a tiny, insignificant thing in the grand scheme of the universe. But standing there looking at the clean counters, you feel like a conqueror.
Because you exerted influence on your environment, you prove to your nervous system that you are not powerless.
This brings us to the core concept of the solution they propose, local coherence. That sounds like a quantum physics term. What does it actually mean for us in this context?
It is borrowed from physics. Coherence is when waves align and work together, creating a strong, unified signal. Local coherence is the idea that you might not be able to fix the global geopolitical crisis or the macroeconomy today, but you can create a pocket of sanity, a pocket of coherence right where you are.
So it's about our immediate relationships.
It is. The text says healthy relationships counteract systemic alienation. If the big systems capitalism media push us toward isolation and endless competition, building a strong local community makes us feel safe. And that can be your family, your team at work, your immediate block. It reduces that scarcity mentality.
It's like building a bunker of sanity.
But a bunker implies hiding. Coherence implies radiating. When you are regulated and grounded, you act differently. You treat people differently. And because behavior shapes environments, your stability actually calms the people around you. You've probably walked into a room where someone was incredibly calm and you felt your own shoulders drop.
Oh, totally. It's contagious.
That is local coherence in action. and it links to their concept of internal integrity. The source says you cannot dismantle global systems alone, but you can reduce dishonesty and ego-driven comparison in your own life.
This is the really hard work. It's so easy to point at a politician on TV and say, he is greedy. It is much harder to look at your own life and ask, where am I being greedy? Where am I prioritizing my status over genuine connection? Where am I being manipulative?
Cleaning up your own side of the street is actually a form of rebellion against those toxic systems. It is the most effective form of rebellion because you are actively withdrawing your participation from the outrage economy.
Taking the macro and making it micro. Which brings us to a phrase in the source that I think everyone needs tattooed on their arm: proportional awareness.
I highlighted that 3 times in my notes. Acknowledge injustice without letting it become your entire identity.
That is such a tough balance, though, because it feels like if I'm not constantly obsessing over the injustice, it means I don't care. The internet loves to tell us that silence is violence and worrying is caring.
That is exactly the trap the outrage system sets for you. It conflates anxiety with virtue. But obsessive worry drains the exact energy you need to actually be helpful. Proportional awareness means I know this bad thing's happening, I care, I will vote or I will donate. But I'm also aware that I am here in this room, safe, with actual work to do today.
Awareness without obsession.
And embodiment. The source says embody what you prefer to see. If you want a world that is more cooperative, be cooperative. If you want fairness, practice fairness in your own deals. Don't wait for this system to magically change. Become the change in your own local radius.
It's a huge shift from waiting for a savior or waiting for the collapse to just working with what is right in front of us.
Which brings us to the beautiful philosophy of time in the source. Here, now, always.
Reality is constructed in present attention.
We spend so much time living in a fantasy future, either a utopia where we win the lottery or a dystopia where the grid goes down.
Yeah.
Or we live in past grievances. But the source is adamant. Behavior happens in the now. Focus shifts in the now. Identity stabilizes in the now.
You can't regulate your nervous system yesterday.
Exactly. You can only take a breath right now. You can only choose to put the phone down right now.
So if we strip away the magic and look at the actual mechanics of it all, the message is quite hopeful. We can't control the global news cycle. We can't control the economy. But we can control the tone of our nervous system, where we point our attention, and how we treat the people standing in the exact same room as us.
We can achieve coherent participation. We aren't denying the problems exist. We are just refusing to be addicted to the outrage surrounding them. We are stabilizing our inner state so that when we do act, it comes from a place of clarity, not panic.
From a stabilized inner state, reality changes, not magically, but incrementally.
That's the ultimate takeaway. Incremental, tangible, mechanical change.
So here is your mission for today if you choose to accept it. Pay really close attention to what you are rehearsing in your head. Are you rehearsing the fight? Or are you rehearsing the solution? Because whatever you are rehearsing, you are building the architecture for your lived reality.
And remember, check your biology first. Are you even breathing?
It starts right there, here, now, always. Thanks for diving in with us today. See you next time.